lines in Chapter 4. So first thing, let's start off with our slope-intercept form, our most common form that we use for equations of lines. And we're going to graph all of ours in slope-intercept form today. And so a quick review on slope-intercept form. It's y equals mx plus b. And if we remember the xy, that just stands for some xy point that's on my graph, right? Any xy point that is on my graph. The m we use for the slope, and the b stands for y-intercept. Hence the name slope-intercept form, because it has a slope and an intercept, and in this case the y-intercept. So y equals mx plus b. And when we graph things in slope-intercept form, we always graph the slope. No, I'm just kidding. We graph the y-intercept first because that's a point on my graph, right? I got to have the point on my graph first. And then we use the slope from there. And we'll take a look at that in a second. So graph the y-intercept first because you know how to graph a y-intercept, or across the y-axis. Then use the slope to find your next point. So write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line with a slope of 1/4. So it told me the slope, 1/4, m equals 1/4. And a y-intercept of -1. Oh, it told me the y-intercept, what b equals, -1. So I can just plug that in right away. So y equals mx plus b, so 1/4 x plus b. So plus -1, but we don't want to write it like that. Remember, plus -1 is the same thing as -1. That looks a lot neater this way. So here's my equation, 1/4 x minus 1. So like I said, the first thing to do, graph your y-intercept. So I'm going to graph that -1. Well, crosses the y-axis at -1. That's what the y-intercept means. So I just go to -1 on my y-axis and I graph it. And then I want to use the slope. Well, my slope is 1/4. And if we remember for slope, it's rise over run. Rise over run. So it looks like I'm going up 1, right, a +1, and right 4 because of +4. So I go to my point that I graphed. I go up 1 and right 4. And there's my new point. I could also go the opposite way. I could go down 1 and left 4, couldn't I? Because what's a negative divided by a negative? Isn't that a +1/4 still? So it's the same slope. So I could also go down 1 and left 4 from the point that I graphed. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, left 4. So there's my line. Boom, and make sure we put our arrows on the end to represent a line, and that's pretty accurate. So we graph the y-intercept and then use the slope to graph. Uh-oh, this isn't in slope-intercept form, is it? 5x plus -4y equals 8. Okay, and I know we could find the x and y intercepts and then graph those, but for today, we want to find it in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to rewrite this. So basically, I want to get it in this form, or what really I want to happen is I want to get the y by itself, and I'm going to get the x term right after the equal sign. So first things we want the y by itself. So here's my y, my -4y. Well, I can't touch that -4. It's connected to it until I get rid of this 5x. So to get rid of the 5x, I have to subtract a 5x. Whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I got to go do to the other side of the equal sign. So the 5x minus 5x is gone. I have this plus -4y. Well, that's just a -4y. I don't need that plus sign in there anymore. And equals 8 minus 5x. Well, I can't combine those. They're unlike terms. And instead of writing 8 minus 5x, I want the x term to come first, like it is in my slope-intercept form. So I'm going to put my -5x first and put my 8 afterwards. Well, it's a +8, so I have to put a plus sign with it. Plus 8. And now we want to get the y by itself. Well, what am I doing to y? Multiplying by -4. So divide by -4. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So those cancel each other. I'm left with y equals, okay, so here's the tricky part now. I have -5x over -4. Well, I can split this up. I can write a -5x over -4, and then I can take my 8 over -4, So plus 8 over negative 4. Well, really that's going to be minus 8 over 4, isn't it? It's a negative. Oh, I'll wait for that part just so we can see this. So let's simplify this now. What I want to do is I want it to look like my slope's in front of my x term. Well, if I think about this negative 5x over negative 4, I'm going to write this down here. Negative 5x over negative 4. Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I'm going to get rid of the negatives there. And what I can do is I can just pull out this x out front and write 5/4 x. And the reason why I can do that is it's really 5/4 times x over 1. Right? That's how I write any number as a fraction. And if I multiply that, I'd get 5 times x over 4 times 1. Or aren't those the same thing now? This would be the same thing as that. So that's all I'm going to do, is I'm going to pull my x term out. So let's go back to this part. So a negative divided by negative is a positive, we said. And I'm just going to pull my x out. And then plus negative 2, right? 8 divided by negative 4. And instead of writing plus negative 2, we're just going to write minus 2. So there's my slope-intercept form. And now just like before, we graph our y-intercept at negative 2. And we use our slope with a rise of 5. So up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a run of 4. So write 4 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's my new point. And I go the opposite way, just like I said, kind of a sloppy line I just drew in there. But you just really need 2 points to graph. So just working a little algebra to get it in slope-intercept form. Last thing, y equals negative 7. Well, it's still kind of in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. But the x is gone. So what do you think the slope is? What do you think I took times x to get the x gone? Probably 0 times x, isn't it? Because 0 times x would be 0, and that's gone, and I'm left with my y-intercept. So isn't this really my y-intercept at negative 7? So I just go down 7. That's really my y-intercept. Even if I made a table here, I have to pick negative y or negative 7 for y, don't I? Because the only thing I can put in this equation is a negative 7 for y to make this equation true. So that has to be that, and it doesn't matter what my x is, so x could be anything, but y has to be negative 7. And my other quick trick is, when I graph this, all I do is I say y equals negative 7, so I'm going to go down to negative 7 on my y-axis, so which is, we already got that graph. And I wouldn't draw a vertical line in here. I'm not going to just draw a line on my y-axis. It's a horizontal line right at negative 7. And if I look at my points, 0, negative 7, 1, negative 7, 2, negative 7, those are all in that graph I just drew. So anytime it's y equals something, I should get a horizontal line at that spot on the y-axis. If I would happen to have something like x equals something, like x equals 4, I just go to 4 on my x-axis, and now it's a vertical line instead. So if I have something like that, I can remember those rules, it's pretty quick, and then I don't have to think about it too much. There we go. Little introduction on slope-intercept form.